I've finished my list. I've hoovered and washed floors, emptied dishwasher, done a wash, started tonight's dinner and ordered me online click and collect. It's just gone 8:30. Not sure what I'm going to do for the rest of the day. I know you might be thinking, well, why not take your time over chores? Because let's face it, time's what we have. Why stick to a list? The short answer to that is, it's not my list. No. My husband's the list writer. He says he's keeping me from moving around with purpose. And he likens me to chaos theory. And he should know, because he knows about these things. It's shit really, isn't it? This time last year I was fighting for my job and I thought the world had fallen apart because I'd lost a 0-hour contract. Having a 0-hour contract is like having a child. You're expected to change nappies and stay up all night, but you don't actually get to see the smiles or the first steps. You always seem to miss them. Anyway, I miss me friends. Just the 0-hour contracts ones, because the one with permanent contracts didn't actually give a toss. Well, not all of them. Especially not Mrs. Drummer. Bongo has bus pass for Gullah. Bus pass, now there's a character. I won't tell you how she got a name. Not for now anyway, maybe later. Then there's Kirsty, 21. She has a genuinely nice young man and a new flat. She now considers herself to be upwardly mobile. The canteen is where we put the world to right. Diet theories. Well, to me, diets are only ever theories. It's hard to keep to a diet when you're giving out cheese samples all day. I went through my list. All done. I googled chaos theory. And the way I'm reading it is that my husband thinks I'm completely random, but gets there in the end due to the underlying patterns. So what's wrong with that then? Maybe he thinks I'm just random. I only let them come back home because she won't let them during lockdown. She can't stand the thought of being with them. I don't blame her. One random act has caused chaos. Took me months of therapy to figure out. He's not a very nice man. We talked about us in the canteen the next day. There's not much we don't talk about. I'd only just opened my packet of cheese and onion crisps and Kirsty asks, how are you getting on with your therapist? I informed her that I didn't think it was canteen material. But I proceeded to tell her anyway. My therapist is to me a smug creature who would be more suited to selling mass-produced burgers to the public. She looks up briefly. How does it feel to be abandoned by your husband? I want to say that it feels like I have 2 invisible pieces of string tied to me insides. One is attached to me heart, and the other to my stomach, and life is pulling the strings with all the strength of the soul-destroying serpent. She looks at my face for answers, and I suddenly become aware of her presence. You know, getting there. Apparently, if you tap your shoulders, it takes all those feelings away, and helps you go up. I tell the girls in the work this, and Buzz Spats dead badly declares, personally, I don't think there's much point in having depression if you can't get the drugs. This tapping your shoulder to calm down will only result in finger strain. Kirsty and I look at each other and start to laugh. Buzz Spats just kept saying, what? Are you laughing at? I suppose you had to keep me there. I said it again. Well, according to my husband, well is a word that the uneducated people use to fill in the vocabulary gap. That's what he said. That's what he said when I was telling him that his abandonment had left me in therapy. That's what he said. And he should know. He knows about these things. When me and the girls were fighting for our jobs, Mrs. Drummer took me aside and said, "You know, Sharon, you have the potential to get a full-time contract." "Oh," I said, "really?" "Yeah," she informed me, and all I needed to do was witness for her against Bus Pass when she came in for a verbal. "What do you say, Sharon?" "It's Sharon," I replied just for devilment, which is really not like me. "You what?" "My name is Serene. After a chorus star, Serene Jones." "What have you done as Sharon?" "It's Serene," I said, not dropping my stare. She was in an obvious state of confusion as she prizes herself on knowing everything about her team. She pipes up, "If your name is Serene, then why is it spelled Sharon?" as she pushes her child-sized spectacles up her bony nose. I do not know where this came from, and I am not known for thinking on my feet. Siobhan is pronounced Siobhan, and Nymph is pronounced Neve, and Sharon is pronounced Serene. Mrs. Drummer looks puzzled now. "You Irish?" And I blankly reply, "No." By now I can see that she doesn't want to continue this conversation. She forces a pen into her top pocket and explains, well is a word that uneducated people use to fill the void of their vocabulary. Cruelty is contagious. The list is lying on the table, neatly folded into quarters. It's a lovely day, and a nice cup of tea would go down well. I pop kettle on, and just at the corner of the eye I catch it to my neighbour. I haven't really spoken to her since lockdown. I reckon it's not really lockdown that's preventing her having a catch-up. I suspect it's the fact that he's back. She's lost respect for me. Who can blame her? We become close. Two unlikely friends. It began when I threw him out last year. I was getting rid of all his stuff. This is the thing that gets me with this man. He's anal and meticulous in everything, except when it comes to drink. When I opened the kitchen cupboard, there were about 10 different bottles with varying degrees of emptiness. I gathered them up and popped them out back. A few minutes later, I hear the quietest of knocks on the door, and there she stood. The girl with what Bus Pass calls toothpaste legs. I wasn't sure what she meant, but she told me it was because she looked like she squeezes herself into them. I'm a bit naive on colloquialisms. "Mrs. Moore, you doing anything with these bottles?" Before I know it, she's in house. I remember telling the girls in the canteen, and then there was a barrage of questions. I told them how the girl knew all about the bottles, where they're produced, what year. Kirsty looks puzzled, as she often does. Bus Pass looked equally confused. Kirsty said, "Does she collect bottles?" "No," I replied. Bus Pass joins in. "She a mermaid?" "No," I said. "She's an alcoholic." Like me, she had some therapy, and the therapy suggests that she get to know the enemy. It's like a coping mechanism. But instead of coping, she's become fixated. That's what you get when you give someone with an addicted nature a stupid task, my husband said. He might have a point. This was the same day that Kirsty got her invite to the neighbours to bring over some lunch. I remember she was so perplexed because she can't cook. She decided that she'd be honest and tell her neighbours that she couldn't cook, and they replied, "That's okay, you can bring the crudities." Poor Kirsty was still worried. Bus Pass said to her, "Well, why are you still worried?" "I have to bring crudities and I don't know any rude jokes." I miss all that. I miss the laughter. I miss being the person in the room that can help. I miss those girls. I'm up early again today. There's a list lying on a table. I fold it up and put it in my pocket. Mrs. Drummer never joined us in a canteen capers. She would always start the day by saying, "Tea, theatre and tits today, ladies." And Bus Pass called her sexist.
she says a male person would never get away with that and get hauled up to management. Today she ignores Kirsty and turns to me. Tea theatre and tits today, Sharon. Emphasis on Sharon. I explained, Mrs. Drummer, there's only a certain amount of drama you can make out of a sausage roll. I get a withering look. I can see she's not quite forgiven me for yesterday's Sharon charade debate. By this time in my working life, I've become more like Kirsty in bus pass rather than Mrs. Drummer. All previous ambitions lost. I'm standing at the counter, counting out my samples. And I keep hearing a tinkling noise and it's driving me mental. Bus pass is late, but that's not unusual. Even so, I thought she'd make more of an effort considering it's her head on the line than now. Have a look round and the place is packed with shoppers. And then I see a sea of people packed to allow the force that is bus pass to come through. She's dressed in a showgirl outfit, complete with tassels and feather headdress. Me jaw falls open. She climbs onto the counter and kicks off the samples. Roll up, she says. Get down quick before Mrs. Drummer sees you. Bus pass, I need this job. I can't be dealt in more Soor Plumes in my life. She looks like a big, beautiful Christmas tree. And in what seems like slow motion, she bends down and beams a radiant smile and offers me a gloved hand. My heart fills with love and admiration. What if it's not a Soor Plum moment, Sharon? What if losing this job is a raspberry cream? The raspberry cream that you've always wanted. She was spectacular, and her jewels glistened in the shop light. I jumped on the counter, closely followed by Kirsty, who took off her shirt and began to wiggle her boobs with bells on the end. The tinkling sound that I heard all morning solved. The customer looks up at the three statues, symbols of three women who had had enough, and asks, will you be putting out some more samples?
The list is on the table. He's nothing if not persistent. And it's not just because of lockdown that I've been oversensitive, as he suggested. Why did I let him get his feet get firmly back under the table? I start to think that my baggage that I carried all the way through lockdown is something I put in my own back after I got rid of it. I've had enough. I can sense him standing behind me and I turn and brush past him. He has no intention of leaving. I go up and pack his bags and I put the list inside. He comes up, sensing that I mean business, and he changes tactic. He looks in my eyes and softens his expression. Let's start again. I'm sorry. I'm a fool. You're a fool. I managed to force out. Yes, I'm a fool, he says. Being that he knows about these things, I can only assume that he's correct.